Welcome into another edition of Mile High Hockey. Mike Evans, Will Peterson with you. As always, Mike, all good things must come to an end. The Avalanche's 5-game winning streak is snapped last night, but it's snapped by the Chicago Blackhawks. Not a very good team at home. Seemed like the Avs were low energy, and I don't think it does you a lot of favors when Georgiev gives up 3 goals in the first period. Kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit in my eyes.
Yeah, and you can't really use the back-to-back as an excuse because the Avs have been so good in back-to-backs the last few years. Maybe the fact that it was 2 back-to-back games at home, whereas when you're on the road, maybe you stay in that hockey mode that maybe you don't keep in as well when you're at home. That's the only explanation I have, but they got 11 more of these back-to-backs, so hopefully they'll be better. They just didn't have that same kind of energy. They didn't have their legs, but to the goaltending issue, you're right. Jared Bednar was quick to say, the first goal wasn't really his fault. The second goal was kind of an unlucky bounce. And I'm not going to really argue with that. The third goal, there was a lot of traffic in front. So it's kind of, once again, the same old thing with Georgiev. It's not that you look at him and say, God, it was so glaringly bad, but we need you to sometimes make those saves that you're not necessarily supposed to make.
Sure.
And he just doesn't seem to be making those saves.
Well, and do you buy into the players having that, here we go again type thing? Because you had won 4 in a row with Justus Ananen in the net. And other than the third period against Ottawa, he was nails during that 4-game stretch, 4-game winning streak. I do think that there's a sports psychology element to this, that those guys are looking up 15 minutes into the game, and Chicago's got a 3 spot on the board. I don't know if you're buying into that as much as I am.
No, because they still had 40 minutes left to get back into the game, right? And it wasn't like it was 3-2. Maybe you trudge off the ice after the first period. And you're kind of like, man, we put 2 goals up and we're still down 3-2. Maybe there's a little bit of that. But as the game goes along and it's just kind of stays stuck at 3-2, now it does become a little bit more on you guys to raise your level of play. And Cale Makar after the game was very emphatic in saying, yeah, we just didn't have enough grit. We didn't throw enough pucks to the front of the net. Too much stuff was done around the perimeter. We got to get a little bit more grit to our game, and it just wasn't there last night.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously, I'm glad no one's throwing Georgie under the bus. You can't be doing that. But I think last night reaffirmed, Mike, that Justus Ananen's the number 1 goalie on this hockey team.
And that's the thing. I always bust Brandon Stokely's chops because he's always like, he wants the big football-like announcement. This is my starting quarterback, right? He wants Jared Bednar to come out and do that big goalie, number 1 goalie proclamation. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you're going to get it. Here's when we'll know. Because whoever starts against Tampa will tell us the story. I suspect it'll be Ananen, right? So what does that tell you? Alexandar Georgiev got the start in the back-to-back, which is traditionally what backups get.
Right.
And then the next game, if there's a day off in between, you go back to your starter. So if Ananen's the goaltender against Tampa on Wednesday, it tells us all we need to know. He's your new number 1. Georgiev is the backup.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think whoever's out there tomorrow night against the Lightning is the number 1 goalie moving forward. Let's do some house cleaning. Ross Colton leaves the arena in a walking boot last night. Jared Bednar said he's definitely going to miss some time. Hockey coaches never tell you anything about injuries, but I think we can read between the lines here, Mike, that Ross Colton unfortunately may have broken something last night.
Yeah, probably broke a foot. The way that it looked, the way that he got hit, which is just such tough luck. And I'm not one to make a whole big deal about injuries, but at some point you look at what's going on with their forwards. It's just ridiculous, the attrition that they've seen with the injuries. I am trying to keep a stiff upper lip about this and look at the positives because guys are going to come back, okay? And so what you hope for the Avalanche is that they can continue to tread water in the standings. Don't put themselves in too deep of a hole. Everyone's going to eventually come back, but I choose to look at the bright side that at least while you're going through this, you're giving guys a chance to play. You're seeing what Ivan can do. You're seeing what Kovalenko could do. These injuries allowed you to see what Ross Colton could do.
Yeah, he really stepped up
when given a chance to play with some highly skilled guys. So I'd like to think that in this treading water phase that the Avs find themselves in, that they're at least gaining some stuff out of all this. And then when the rest of the guys come back, now we go. But at some point, the injuries, especially up front, start to become like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, ultimately, you hope Jared Bednar has some tough decisions to make because you've learned so much about a couple of the guys you mentioned that there's not enough jerseys for everyone at a certain point, and that is something I didn't expect to happen with all these guys missing. Obviously, the 0-4 start was tough to watch, but the 5-game winning streak really did expose, like, there is some depth on this roster, Mike, and I'm not so sure depth was something many Avs fans thought they had a month ago. So that's something that's been nice to learn. Another note that we want to pass along, just in the last couple of hours, Kaapo Kähkönen has been brought up to the Avalanche's roster, played 2 games with the Eagles. Mike, you tell me, is this a carry 3 goalies type situation? How's this going to work in the short term?
It might be one of those things that until we clearly know each goaltender's role, we're just going to have a bunch of goalies here and let the best man win. And we're not going to worry about egos or anything like that. And it's too important of a position, so we're just going to have as many goaltenders flooding the ice as possible, and we'll just let them decide who are the guys that are going to get to play. I don't have a problem with it. I've always said that when it comes to football, we're so sensitive about quarterbacks. Oh, we got to make sure every quarterback's role is clearly defined. Screw that. Sorry, pardon my language, but
it's a podcast. You can say whatever
I can
you
say
want.
whatever I want. You should be with the Stink podcast. But it's like we're so worried about protecting feelings. Hey, it's too important a position. Bring as many quarterbacks in as you can until you find your guy. And I would say the same thing about the goaltending situation. It's too important a position. And if Alexandar Georgiev's feelings are hurt, well, tough.
He's making a lot of money. I think, it's more about winning games, and that's something Bednar has always done since he's been here, pressing the right buttons. I think Kähkönen probably gets a start, maybe 2, but he's going to have to impress early to hang on. I think it's definitely one of those things where the leash will be short with him. Let's get out of here on this tomorrow night against the Lightning at Ball Arena. Mike, it just always is going to bring back memories of 2022.
It is, but my goodness, does it speak to how quickly rosters and teams can turn over in just a couple years? You take the Avalanche roster from that night, you take the Tampa Bay roster from that final game, and then you look at what will be on display tomorrow night. I mean, no Landy, no Val, no Nazem Kadri, no
Darcy Kemper,
no Steven Stamkos.
Yep.
So it's really wild how much these 2 rosters have changed in just a couple of years.
Yeah, and Ross Colton now plays for the Avs, although he won't be out there tomorrow night. But I'm looking forward to it. Avs and Lightning, that is good times. Colorado, of course, beat them in 6 games. Didn't get it done at Ball Arena, but they'll try to get a win at Ball Arena against Tampa tomorrow night, and we will be back on Thursday morning to react.